you're going to DJ, right?
I can. I'm doing it tomorrow night. So. We're ready to go.
Okay, welcome everyone. So today we'll be doing a presentation on Sitecore Item Web API. We have three presenters. We're going to start off with Jamie Michalski from Valier. Then we'll be moving on to Ben Lipson from Valier as well. And then Mike Reynolds from Meetup will be finishing things off. Just quick housekeeping. The restroom is around this pod here. Walk straight to the door. You can find it there. And yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know Valier, if you haven't been here before, welcome. We're just a digital agency located right here, the first and second floors, and we're a longtime Sitecore partner. Have been partnered with them since 2006, I believe, and co-sponsors of the Sitecore New England User Group. So without further ado, pass it off to Jamie.
So thanks for coming. It was a gloomy day today, I know, but thanks for persevering through the weather and coming along anyway and joining us here at Valier. Just wanted to do a quick 15-minute on the Sitecore Item Web API. I'm just going to lean more towards the front-end side of it, and Ben's going to do some more back-end, and Mike is a surprise, so we'll see what he can do it. I'll do it later. Yeah, so basically the impetus came from me having a little downtime here at Valier and wanted to brush up a little on my JavaScript skills, which at the time were a bit rusty. So I played around with Angular a little bit, and I don't know if there are any Angular people in the house, but yeah, I think it's great. So so I wanted to get brush up some Angular skills too, and with the added bonus of learning the Sitecore Web API since we are a Sitecore house here at Valier. So let me move on. So get a little browser nostalgia here, but this is a very simple round trip that you make when you use the Item Web API. SQL Navigator 2.02 makes an HTTP request, goes out to Sitecore. Sitecore just passes it back as JSON. It's fairly simple, and you can do whatever you want with that. So here's the typical request format. There's three different ways that you can get an item out of Sitecore with the API. Very flexible, and there's all sorts of different options you can get. So you can get a little bit of data, you get a lot of data from it. You can get by ID or path, or even by a query. And query is where things can get a little dangerous. You can get back a lot more data than you anticipated. So you need to be careful sometimes when you're calling by query. But every request has the same format, just your host name dash item v1, and then you pass in your either your ID or your path or your query. It's actually fairly simple. And you have a few additional parameters that you can introduce. You can get by version, language, you get by database, and I think some of the real power here is in the next section, payload, scope, and fields. That's when you can really narrow down what kind of data you're looking for out of your items. So you don't want to be grabbing a giant, very complex item from here. Or if you are, you can be sure not to slam the browser with too much data by specifying your payload. So you get the minimum content, which I believe this returns the name and the ID. It's GUID. You can get content, which is just fields on the item, and you can get full, which has the standard fields in addition to the content fields. You can also set scopes, pretty self-evident. You can get itself, its parent, or the children item. It's not recursive children, but I believe Mike had a talk before about that, or maybe that's what you're covering today. I believe something along those lines, correct?
It's just a surprise.
Well, I knew a little.
I wrote a blog post about it. You basically customize it down to your own scope, your own axes, and definitely I did that for recursion. Here you got a whole content tree within Sitecore.
Right.
It was very slow.
It's very slow. Maybe in the future you give a talk about how to speed that up. So you can also get back specific fields, and they're just pipe delimited. So any field that you want, you get in that format shown below. So without any further ado, let's make a blog post. So a little background for this, I think what I started to realize about the power of the Item Web API is that you can decouple content editors, people who are rather content creators. Say, the typical example is a blog post maker. We all understand what a blog post is, instead of some esoteric concept that we probably actually use day to day. But blog post creators have a title field, some content, maybe an image, and that's what I've recreated here in my front end that I'll show you in a second. So I think it's a little bit too much maybe for a person just making a simple post like that to have to log into Sitecore, have to go into the content editor, maybe edit those fields. There's a lot of upfront learning that you need to know about Sitecore before you can even start to create this content. So I was thinking, well, what if you could create a front end that's decoupled from the concept of knowing about Sitecore at all, and allow content creators to create their content right from there. So let me switch on over. Okay. So here we are. Oh, it's very bright. So hopefully it will become clear what's going on here in a second. So, okay. Okay. So I just have a very simple front end. Very simple. And this is just done through Angular. These two fields are two-way data bound. So Angular knows about these, and I can just pass them right through when I create my blog post. So I'm going to go ahead and create a post, but let's pick an image first. I don't know if you were aware of the Luigi Death Stare meme, but I'm a big fan. And we're going to Luigi, we're going to get some boilerplate text, do bacon Ipsum. We're going to attempt to do it again. There we go. And I'm going to scroll down, and here's my create button. So we'll just hit create here. And once that's done, I didn't wire in some nice, like, hey, you did a post yet. I'm sorry, I'll get to that later for another talk. And so we'll go to the Sitecore tree, we'll refresh this, and our item has been created. Note that this is all done front end, no back end code involved. And you can see the title I just put in, the content, and the image. And if you look at the raw values for the image in my code, my JavaScript, I'm just literally creating this from the returned JSON when I make the image. When I upload it, it returns the GUID, and then from that GUID, I can just create this image tag and just insert it right in. The other thing that happens is if you go to the media library, refresh, it puts the image right there for you. Now, one thing that I didn't get time to do was actually have this on create also publish. Now, I know you can get this item from the master, but I'm just going to publish this now, this item, so that when I pull it back down, we'll see it. And I'll show you that in 1 second. So if we go back here, I have, this is my create post view. This is my create post Angular view. And then I also have a button that's get my blog post. So I have a field here that just allows me to put in any path. And so I'm just going to put in the location of my Luigi blog, pull it, and then it gets pulled down right there. Now the cool thing, or at least what I envision this side of the app, being, is you would have someone who's going to be the content editor. So the creator posts it, then the content editor pulls it back down, and they're able to make changes and even possibly send it back to the content creator. So these are all editable, content editable fields. So I can just do Luigi Mario, hit save, and when I go back to the Sitecore tree, it says Luigi Mario. So that's it, and this is all done all front end code. So let me go into the code. So we have one Angular person in the house, it seems. I'm not going to get, some more.
He's got enough enthusiasm for free.
Cool. Well, maybe we hope we can talk after about it. So I'm not going to get too much into how Angular works or anything like that. It's a JavaScript MVC framework. It's amazing, and it's basically magic to me. But what happens here is I just have my, well, no, let's not go into the HTML files. But basically when I hit the buttons, it's calling first my upload image function here.
Maybe, can you make the text a little bit bigger?
Oh yeah, sure. Is that Control plus?
Yeah, 100% to the bottom of the corner.
Oh, thanks, man. Let's try 150. Is that a little better? Yeah, great. So I have my upload image function. Through Angular, you're able to, in a plugin called Ajax Form, you're able to get the file from the input just as an object. And I grab the name, and then as we saw before, just pass that into the HTTP request here, set my database where I want it to go. We ignore the fact that the authentication is in plain text, and we move on. So we just I use Angular. I use a couple things. Angular's HTTP post was the only way I was reliably able to get the image uploading to work correctly, so I just stuck with that. But I used regular Ajax, jQuery Ajax, to do the other stuff. So I just have a promise here that I get the response back. The response is just the JSON of the returned item, the returned image object. And the reason I did the image first is I need to ensure that the image, it's going to take longer for the image, of course, to get into Sitecore than text is. So I have to ensure that my image is there before I try to associate that with the post itself. So then I just go ahead and create a post. Now, what I did here inside of this file is I just wrapped up all of the functions that you're able to do through the HTTP, through the item web API, just in a nice little wrapper here that I can call from my, and I sort of decoupled it from the Angular app so I can pass this around. And I set up a couple objects here. One's the Ajax settings base, and this is the most common stuff I'm going to do when I'm making this post. Generally, you're going to be doing a get most of the time. At least I was. So you just set that up. You're passing through JSON, of course. We've got our totally private authentication. And then you can just set up your options, like here, like you saw on the slide before. These are the standard options. And then I just that was the old upload image. That one did not work originally, so forget about that one. But here, let's scroll down. I create my item. Here, I just pass in that image data. I construct it and just pass it right to the image field. So all this is some serialized JSON that's just passed through, and I pass that in through the data through the HTTP post. I just make my call, and that's it. It's pretty easy stuff, and it's really powerful. So I think that's going to conclude my section. I don't know if anyone have any questions. I don't want to go too deep into the jQuery. What's up?
Do you mind switching the first slide that you showed?
Yeah. This here?
The first slide.
Right, your slide.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which slide were you interested
The
in?
first one where you showed the path and stuff like that.
Okay.
So when you have the URLs, the endpoints like that, isn't if you remove the content item from Sitecore, do you think the ID changes? And if you expose the endpoint with an ID, if at all you remove or re-add the item, wouldn't the ID changes? Then the consumer also has to have the new ID, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what's the best practice now? Is it content ID or is it the path? What would be best in the URL?
So let's see if I understand. So you're saying that an item was put in Sitecore, that item has been moved to somewhere else now, the GUID would stay the same, I believe, if it was moved. So you would want to get it by the GUID. Yeah, I think that would be best practice.
So for any reason, if you remove and re-add that item, then it is going to be a totally new GUID, right?
If you do what to it?
If you remove the for any if you remove the item and recreate it,
Yeah,
it will be a totally new
yes,
ID.
Yeah.
So-
In that case, you don't
Yeah,
I would
query to
pretty much,
query.
I would say it'd be better doing it by app, you know, assuming that it's not gonna be moved because that's your best bet. But it really depends on your requirements and what your needs are. It definitely needs to be things up front saying, hey, you can't really, you know, mess around with this because it's gonna cause problems.
Yeah, I mean, the queries are pretty, I mean, it's just like doing a regular Sitecore query in your search box. I mean, if you know generally what type of items you need, that's probably the best practice, but it depends.
I just have two quick questions. The first one is regarding what the return type is. Is it always JSON?
Mm-hmm.
So it can never be XML, or is it?
That's up to you. I think you keep returning.
You can customize it to return any format that you want.
You did that, okay.
I wrote a blog post about doing it in YAML, just for fun. But you can actually, one of the cookbooks shows you how to actually make an XML serializer for this.
Right. Okay.
Do you want to see it? I mean, I can just expect the net. Or I mean, it's
Oh,
just.
no, I understand. Just making sure. And also, have you ever had any trouble when it returns anything like an ID that doesn't exist? It's just an empty JSON object, or?
No, I've never had it. If you are searching, or rather trying to pull something that doesn't exist,
Invalid.
it gives you a really clear error message in the response.
Okay.
So,
I do want to add one thing about your first question, though. If you do change the serializer, you know, be aware that Sitecore in 7.2 is using this out of the box. You might break things in Speak.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did that myself. I wrote something in Speak, so you know, be aware that you really need to swap it out conditionally, saying, hey, if I see this in a query string, then use mine. Otherwise, use the out of the box one.
Right.
So until I saw your Ajax call, I was wondering how you did authentication, and now I'm wondering if you came across any other ways to do authentication.
next question.
Well, I guess
we talk about this a lot. and-
This is the question he's been dreading.
Sorry.
No, it's totally. It's funny. I think when you see Ben's methodology, you'll see where the hooks can be for this. There are ways. It's in the documentation. There are ways to do authentication. For this demo, I just didn't get to that portion of it. So
What happens if you try to manipulate an item without being authenticated?
it will say no. You don't have access to view this item.
Does it
There's
status code other than 200, or does it?
I think it's 403.
Yeah. So one thing to note too, I actually did mention this. I believe before Sitecore version 7.0, you have to install a package to get the web API. It's built in after 7.0, and there's an item, there's a config file, and you set up your security in there. So you can set anonymous access if you want. I don't know why you would. Or you can set specific users to have specific access levels through the config.
And one note on that question. So he was doing editing, right? And so I think in that mode, or that kind of, if you're going to do editorial tasks, you would likely pass the login through, right? You're not going to, you know, kind of wire in a default login for those features, you know, in the same way that you log into the editor today, you know, you'd have some sort of form to capture the username and password and pass that through so you don't have to store it. I imagine that's how you'd approach it. You know, you wouldn't want to just have a default login that the application used.
I mean, you're using this externally too, so it's going to be as a service. So you're going to need some other authentication as well.
Right. Sitecore does provide.
So if you're setting up the security in this config file, is that compatible with the security in the user manager, or does it supersede that? Or?
No, yeah, it's compatible with that. Yeah, I'm just logging in as an admin, you know, admin G. We all love that.
You set different permissions for the same user in both places.
I'm actually going to, do you mind if I hijack this?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was doing research into this. So it actually goes by user, it respects user roles and user permissions. If a user cannot see this item in Sitecore, they cannot pull it from the API. It'll give them, depending on what it is, it'll either give you a 403 error, or if it's just like you're querying item and parent, you can't see parent for whatever reason, it just won't show parent. But yeah, you can specifically deny or allow users
So I went a little over my 15-minute allotment, so I think I'm gonna kick it over to Ben now. If that's okay.
Can I just ask a quick question? This is a read-only API, right?
No.
No, you can
Where
read
is the rate?
Oh, I didn't show that function, but yeah, you get post, you can even patch.
Okay, so you weren't. It's not like you had a form defined in Sitecore to receive that file upload. It's part of the web API.
Yes. Okay, that's correct. All right, I can kick off the Ben. Thank you very much, guys.
So before I begin, can you adjust the contrast a little bit?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Creators of Bootstrap went through a lot of hard work to make everything look beautiful. They're a little like, oh man, I went to sleep. So a little bit of a tip when you're presenting, change the sleep timer on your computer so it doesn't go to sleep in the middle of it.
Can you wake mine up?
Yeah, yours is sleep too. And I am no longer in the go-to meeting. Sorry about this. I am.
Yeah, you're okay now. Let me grab that.
Does it say I'm there?
It does not.
Is it there, Corey?
Can't see the number. I can read it to you.
Oh yeah, this is it. Or just connected to something else. Nope. I am now in
Right, here's the goal.
I am going to end up breaking.
You don't tell URL and slash. So you just have your preset navigation, so you can create some type of site called something else. Architecture that I wanted to. Navigation, holds all navigation on top.
This is actually plugged in.
Oh, it is? Yeah, we're
repeater to get the
really not much slack there.
I got battery. We're good. Oh, beautiful. Contrast and everything. So, hi. My name is Ben. I have a presentation. So, I'm going to be fixing my display settings. Yeah, you can see it, but you can't. So, my presentation is called Sitecore Out of Context. It is a way of accessing Sitecore from the back end without Sitecore context. That's a clever name right there. So this is the back-end perspective of the web API. So why would I do such a thing? So we had an issue come up where a client wanted a small microsite where they didn't need really any of the Sitecore functionality, but they wanted to access a couple of the content items because they already had an existing site. This was just a quick little spin-off. So we wanted to cut down on the bulk, and we came up with this little idea. The project got greenlit and got canceled, but I liked the idea, so I kept running with it. So that's where this came out of. So my goals were to create a backend ASP.NET API to interact with Sitecore. I wanted statically typed items, and I wanted to get the basic create, read, upload, update, and delete. And I wanted to interface it with Glass. 3 out of 4 of those actually worked. Glass did not like it. So how does it work? So you have a little Sitecore controller over here, a little controller. This is my default MVC controller. And it connects to, or it sends a request to the Sitecore connector. And I did not label any of these. So the Sitecore connector sends a query to Sitecore, and Sitecore sends back the JSON, and Jamie just showed all this in the front end. My Sitecore connector will then send it to an item factory, and that item factory, I'm a fan of unit testing, so I wanted to make everything interfaces instead of giving back like an actual concrete class. So this item factory works some reflection magic and instantiates some interfaces using Castle Dynamic Proxy. sends it back to the controller. Sorry, the connector sends it back to the controller, and then we have a front end. And that is the future. So I'm switching over here. This is the beautiful little bootstrappy interface I came up with. So we have, on the left-hand side over here, we have the representation of the Sitecore content tree, which it pulled all from the API. And then over here we have a couple of the fields from the items. So here we can create a child. So I'm going to make a new food called pasta, which with a sort order of 5, the name of it is going to be pasta. Food name is pasta. And the type is pizza. I'm going to create this item. So magically, this item now is here. Yeah, it's been created over here if I refreshed it. And I can see it over here. Anything here with a little edit field, I can actually edit. So pasta. And that item now has pasta, or it is correctly labeled as pasta. And so that was, here's the get, create, the edit, and now I can remove it. Be careful with remove, because it does, while it asks very friendly on the front end, I have deleted the content out of this. That never happened a second time. So I'm going to jump right into the back end of this here. First,
Can we zoom?
I don't know what you guys are talking about. It's fine to me. Yes, I guess it's kind of important when I'm showing you the back end code. You gotta be able to read it. Okay, I think you guys can read that, right? Cool. So this is the default index controller action. What it does is it makes the base item, or it calls the connector.getItem, and I'm giving it the GUID of the item I want. That's the home item. Another thing that you could do with it is this is a person item, and I can cast it as a iPerson item. And then I pass it into the model, and that's how I got this baby. A couple other things you could do with it, and this is not anywhere on the front end right now, this is just some examples. You can do the get item, which I just showed. You can also query the item. You can query items also. To create the item, you have to use the item factory to instantiate the interface. And then you can set its values, and then you call the connector to add item. This would be the create call. You can update item by taking an item I already created, giving it new values, and calling update. Or you can delete an item. And this, while testing this function, is how I deleted the content out. So when the JSON comes back from Sitecore, it gets serialized and this. It gets serialized as this little class here, which has the database, the data, the display name, children, blah, 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 all the fun stuff that we've all seen before. So this connector response item gets passed to the Sitecore connector. And what this does, I'm only going to show the get.
Can you zoom it again? Oh, sorry, it switches every time.
I keep forgetting to do that. What was it? It was
175.
I'm trying to find the shortcut. Control plus. No, Control plus is definitely not working. We're good now. I'll do it in the next file. I got plenty here. This get item call takes in the item ID. It'll get the item response from Sitecore, which will give it's a string. Then the deserializer will take in the JSON string. It will convert it into a connector response, which becomes a connector response item, and then calls the item factory get items. And this, we're going to try this. Nice. So that was a fun experiment. We're not going to try it again. So the item factory get item will get an item from an interface. It's taken in this connector response, which is again the serialized JSON, and it uses as the castle dynamic proxy that works on magic. Takes it, creates the base item. In this case, because it's calling get items, it'll cast them as base item, but you can also cast it as whatever you actually want, as long as it's an interface inherited base item. Creates it, fills in its fields, and magic. Returns the enumerable of whatever type you want. So, has anybody here worked with Valir's custom item generator? Yeah, it's fewer than I expected. Cool. So what it does is, for those who don't know it, it can take an item from Sitecore, a template, and it will not magnify it, but it will serialize it, and I've modified it just slightly so it's creating interfaces instead of classes, and so it's actually creating this item based off of a template from Sitecore. It has the matching field names, and it inherits from the address item, which is also so you end up with the person item, which inherits from the address, which inherits from base item. Take my word for it, there's a lot of fields in here.
Can I ask a quick question about the context this code's running in? This is like a IIF server that's totally decoupled from a Sitecore license server, right?
Right. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's connecting. There's no Sitecore DLLs in here at all. It's
Okay,
just,
I was confused because your using statements seem to have a lot of Sitecore.
Yeah.
But those are your own grammars, apparently.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I forgot to mention this earlier. I have the iService connector, which I've implemented it as the Sitecore connector, but I've left it out as an interface in case somebody wants to, for some crazy reason, not use Sitecore. But it is mostly designed to work with Sitecore, but you don't have to.
Thanks.
So, more magic. So the Sitecore connector. Oh yeah. I guess while I'm showing this gigantic screen of security. So the difference between the JavaScript implementation and this one in terms of handling security is that I'm not showing this password in plain text in the JavaScript file that everybody can look at. Since this is working as a service, or it's handled through the controller, however you want to use it. All the interactions are handled in the back end. So while the information still gets sent over, you can instead do it over an HTTPS connection, which will kind of hide it a little bit more. Or I believe Sitecore, the instructions on the PDF actually said some other ways of encrypting the credentials. But either way, it looks nice over here. It's not text. The one last thing I wanted to show was how awesome these unit tests can be because of the way it's generated. So, because I got rid of the need for concrete classes, and it's only using interfaces, you have the ability to use these. You can just use nsubstitute or your favorite mocking tool, and just substitute an item, give it a return value, and just verify that it actually received these calls. It just makes testing a lot more easy than trying to mock up Sitecore data items. That was one of my goals when doing this. So again, in short, there is the, I just went for the basic create, read, upload, update, and delete. And what I got was this. And I have, and that is a preview of the code, and it might. Sorry, 1 second. So the future. My future goals are to release this on GitHub, and this is going to be very soon. I was meaning to do this, but I haven't done this before. I'm going to polish it up a little bit more, add some documentation around it, and then eventually I'm going to release it on the Sitecore Marketplace and add it to NuKit. And I want to expand on development a little bit more. I want to get maybe past just the CRUD, and I there is, as Jamie mentioned before, this patch which will actually publish the item, which I want to kind of just play around with a little bit. It also does not have any it does not grab images just yet, but that is one thing we can work on. This is more just a, hey, I heard about the Sitecore item API, let's see what I can do. So I'm going to take any questions. Again, my name is Ben. This is my email address. That's my Twitter and my blog. And I have just a little disclaimer. I've just created this blog. It has one post on it. It's easy. So yeah, any questions? Not one question. I must be a great person. Okay. Mike.
All right.
I went to sleep.
So to get the visual up, do I just plug this in and just work magically, or?
I hope so. There's a lot of magic going on today.
Bear with me. So I'm Mike Reynolds. I am a product. I'm a tech lead at NetTouch.
Mike, are you on the COTI meeting? Could you?
No.
Sorry about that. I just want to make sure we get it recorded.
Okay.
It looks like you're no longer in this one. Let's see.
So how do I disconnect from here back in?
Yeah, Ben, do you still have the ID? Because you.
Yeah, it's you might have to actually just like file. Oh, are you? Yeah, just leave meeting. And if you in the tray, if you just yeah, just if you hit start, look for.
If you still have the invite link in your email, you can just open it up again. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, it keeps it history. It's not.
Sorry, guys. And it's walking out of Wi-Fi.
Question for Jamie.
Sure.
Since we're in time. I forgot to ask, is your code up on GitHub or is it available?
I do have a Git repo. It's private right now, but probably going to be making about, hopefully a weird blog post specifically about the image portion of what I had done, because I think it was the most complex thing and the hardest to get my head around. And it was more not because of the Sitecore item API, but more because the way Angular, JavaScript, React, or handle post data. So I think that would be useful for people who undoubtedly have the same problems that I will. So I might put that in a blog post earlier, but I need to do some cleanup of the code, and I'll make a public GitHub
Cool.
repo.
Well, one thing you could do is post to the message board for this group, so that way people that are here will know when it's comments up there.
That'd be great. Yeah, I will. Any
I'll
more
do the
questions?
same.
All right. All right, so take two. I'm Mike Reynolds. I am a tech lead at MedTouch and also the internal Sitecore developer trainer. I pretty much have the privilege of growing new Sitecore developers and pretty much just being a mentor and showing them around and making awesome developers. And I want to give a plug. We're actually hiring. If you want an awesome job, come see me afterwards. See Laurie. So pretty much what am I talking about? So pretty much I'm going to show you how to customize a Sitecore item web API, doing your own type of whatever you need to do. Mine's going to be a little bit more academic and more boring. Pretty much I'm going to show you something that's probably not very useful, but I did give a presentation on this at the Sitecore Virtual Summit last year where I showed how to actually add that patch request method to do publishing. And I also have a blog post out there. So that might be more useful than what I'm going to show today, but I had no really good idea of what to show that would be useful. So I pretty much, and I'll get to it, I'm not going to actually disclose it right now. So just to give you a little background, Sitecore Item Web API does basic CRUD methods, create, read, update, delete. Pretty much these are the request methods that it will handle, create wants to post, read if you need to pass get, update is put, and then delete is obviously delete. Everything is customizable pipelines. Pretty much you can just tap into everything, and I think that also includes the security stuff. If you need to really change the way that works, you have the option of doing that as well. I don't remember which pipeline it is, but definitely you can just look at the the config file and find it. It's named intuitively, so you can see it. So pretty much you can add your own operations here, and so what I'm going to show is how to actually add an item web API request pipeline processor to basically pass and delegate onto another pipeline that does cloning. So before I jump into the code, I'm going to just show you what this looks like. I built a nice, beautiful web page. It's definitely awesome. And pretty much you just click the clone button. Has a nice little Ajax spinny. And then it returns some JSON. And I'm using some kind of jQuery plugin to make it look nice so you can read it. So pretty much everything comes back, and I basically cloned one item to do two different folders within Sitecore. Let me show you that. Let's do this. Whoops, I have to log in. But you don't know my password. All right. So basically what I did is I actually cloned this item here. It has a cat and a hat on it with some content. I cloned it to these two different folders right here. You can tell it's a clone because the source field has something in it and it's put in, to the item that I cloned. And same thing with this. So pretty much that's all it did. And I'm going to show you the JavaScript really quickly. I'm not a front-end developer. Don't freak out. Definitely don't. Yeah, this code is just to get this up and running. But pretty much all I'm doing is I'm sending an Ajax request using jQuery, where I'm sending over the credentials in plain text. You can see them right here. I created a new user for this, for the item web API, and pretty much I'm just I'm passing over. The item I want to clone, this is going to be the context item. The scope is self. I basically did not allow for multiple axes here, so you can pass in multiple axes using a pipe. So you can do self, parent, child. But I didn't support that in this because it would have been way too complicated. Cloning, I didn't want to go there. Destinations, I pretty much just is a custom thing I added. Pretty much I'm just passing in different parent items and they're separated by a pipe. And then send it over to financials. And pretty much I'm just putting it in in a div, and then I'm using this plugin to make it look pretty. And that's all it's doing. And then it's showing it after it's propagating. So there's nothing really magical here. It's just, it's doing its thing. So one thing to note is I created a custom request method here. So out of the box, like I said, you can do, put, post, get, and delete. But you can also add your own. Now I will caution you, it won't work in all browsers. Like some browsers will like, hey, that's not a standard request method. I'm like, no. But in Chrome it works, so that's why I can show you this. In reality, you may want to have something like this work for a console application or something that's not browser-based in order to populate things within Sitecore. And then I also said, I want to do recursive cloning here. I'm not recursively cloning anything because there are no child or descendants for those that item. Actually, no, I'm sorry, there were. It actually cloned poetry. I forgot I changed this the other day. So I cloned all of these items that came from here, this whole subtree. All right, so let's jump into some code. So actually, before I show you the code, I want to just show you what the config looks like so that it will make more sense when we go and look at it. So pretty much, all requests go through this pipeline to Sitecore item API.
Could you go magnify a little bit?
Sure. That doesn't work for me either. How's that? All right. So our requests make their way through this pipeline and hit Sitecore through the Sitecore item API. I'm pretty much, I created my own pipeline processor for this, and I'm putting it right before the result action pipeline processor, which I believe might be the last pipeline processor in this pipeline. I put it right before it so I can intercept, my custom request method over Sitecore's, and then handle it or not handle it, or pass it to the next. What this does is I'm passing in using Sitecore's configuration factory. I'm passing in two properties into this class. So I'm checking for the request method, and then multiple items in there. Pretty much I'm doing a split on this in the code so that I can grab the destinations. This actually delegates to this guy. This is a custom pipeline that I built for this. And it has two processors, which I'll show you. One does exactly what it says right here, it clones items. And then I set the result so that I can pass it back to the Sitecore item web API so we can convert it into JSON. Has everybody built a custom pipeline before? Right, great. And so you guys, won't think it's all crazy when I show this. So I'm going to show you the item web API request processor that I built. Basically, it inherits from this base class. A lot of things in the Sitecore item web API have base classes you should inherit from in order for things to work. I inherited from that because I'm jarring in a particular pipeline. Pretty much all I'm doing is seeing, hey, should I actually process this? I mean, this is just checking, the actual request method. And then I'm also making sure that there aren't multiple scopes being passed in multiple axes because I'm not going to handle it. Would have been too complicated. You guys would probably fall asleep. And then I make sure, there are actually items in scope. If there aren't, I log a message, log a warning into the log file. And then I just, say, no, we can't process this and just, move on. Pretty much, I grab the destination items where I'm doing, a split on, the destination squares parameter that's passed in. I'm pretty much, using some sloppy link code here to grab the items from the context database for the Sitecore item web API. So this actually is available to you through the API. Where you grab, from the current context, it's looking at the SC database query string to determine what the database is. Pass it back, and pretty much just create a pipeline arcs for my custom pipeline that I built. Passing, in the items that I want to clone, destinations, and then, whether or not I should clone recursively. And then I run the pipeline. That's pretty much all that's doing. So the first pipeline processor. So before I actually jump into that, I had to create, pipeline arcs for this. Pretty much, I had to inherit from base class, like I said. Sitecore item web API has a lot of base classes you should inherit from, and these are abstract. So there are things you may have to implement, maybe not. And then I added a couple properties here, destinations, is recursive, and then I basically returned a collection of the cloned items. It basically changed it in here and just put it in correctly. And then I created a base processor for my clone pipeline, which inherits from this this one that's base class, in Sitecore and Web API, and it wants a type for your environment. It's pretty much, nothing to this. It's not really that complicated here. But, so this is the first pipeline processor that runs for cloning. Pretty much we just make sure things are being passed, and then we iterate over all items that should be cloned. And then we basically just clone them to the destinations that were supplied. Basically, I'm just using Sitecore API to do a clone to a destination, and whether or not I should clone all descendants. Then the next pipeline processor for this pipeline, basically it's just setting the result. Pretty much what I have to do is I basically, have to make sure there is a result. I mean, if there is no result already set, do something. If there's something already set, leave it alone, because it might have been handled by another pipeline processor somewhere else. This gives you the ability to make this, scale. And then I basically pass in the cloned items to the item Web API read pipeline, which actually will, read those items, and I think it converts it into JSON. I think this is the pipeline that does it. I could be wrong though. I think that's why I had to do this. And basically just return it back. It creates an object. It's actually a wrapper object that comes with the Sitecore item Web API that basically magically gets serialized into JSON. I don't remember what that object was. It's a certain wrapper that they created for this. And pretty much, that's it. It all goes back to, here, and then we set the result that was, the wrapper object, and just pass it on to the rest of the pipeline, and just let it handle it. And then it basically will, do the serialization and return it back to the caller. So that's pretty much it for this code. I mean, there really isn't a lot here. I know it looks like it could be a little complicated, but it's really not that hard to wire up in operations here. You can add anything that you want. Within limits. You don't want to make clone requests from maybe IE. So there are some resources out there that you guys definitely want to have a look. There's a couple, there are blog resources out there. So the first link is a blog post written by Mike Casey, who works at Sitecore. He pretty much just gave more of an overview, and he actually made a plug as well. That's why I included it here. And then the next link is pretty much it's a tag of all Sitecore item Web API blog posts I've written up to date. I have a bunch out there you definitely want to take a look at, and I pretty much just talk about customizations like this or other things that you do, changing up the serializer, things like that. I've covered all that in my blog, the patch publishing pipeline, things like that. There's some presentations out there that were given in the past that you definitely want to have a look at. So this top one was given by Curran Nightingale, who was a former employee of Sitecore UK. He gave a nice overview of the Sitecore item Web API. Definitely, I looked at that before I even knew what I was doing, and I learned a lot from this presentation. And then this one is actually a presentation I gave at the virtual summit last year. It's out on YouTube. You can definitely check it out. I covered a lot about basic overview of the Sitecore item Web API and customizations, and I also covered the serialization stuff in there and patch publishing. Get in touch. If you have any questions, you can send me an email. You can tweet me. That's probably the best option to find me. Go on my blog. If you write a comment, I will respond. I try to keep up to date with that stuff as much as possible. And you can always connect with me on LinkedIn, but definitely Twitter's probably the best place to find me. Any questions? Yes.
I have a question about reliability of the Web API. What's been your experience with different versions of Sitecore?
I have not seen it change, from when it was a package versus being out of the box now. It looks like it's the same. I could be wrong. I did not do a diff on the code, but I did a diff on the config, and it was the same config. So I'm assuming the code is almost the same. There might be minor refactorings. Nothing is big. Nothing major has changed. So there were no breaking changes anywhere.
I I asked because I inferred from something in the Meetup thread that someone had found that it had some issues at first.
I don't, and I actually asked about that. And I never got a response on that because I was curious what those issues were.
I know there are two different versions of the API. There's 1 and 1.1. I don't know which.
Right.
The one I was demonstrating on, I think the same one Jamie was on, was version 1. I think Sitecore 7 and above uses 1.1. I think that one's available by package also.
Is it really?
There's something that was prevented me from using it. Oh, it needed to have Sitecore 6.6, the latest patch to use 1.1 version.
Yeah, I think I did a diff between 1.0 and 1.1. Didn't really see much of a difference. Maybe there were differences, maybe code changes that were, fixed. I don't really know them. Any other questions?
I have one question.
No.
What do you see as like the biggest breakthrough for this service, Sitecore as a service? I mean, have you tried anything with native mobile devices that you have in your previewing and your basic root operations? But is there any kind of examples that you've seen that have been that have not been really implemented yet?
That have not been implemented yet?
Yeah. Any kind of ideas?
So yeah, I mean,
Blood flow.
So I mean, I added customizations to it because I needed it to work. I mean, we built an importer for physicians, where we read from a data source. Could be a web service, could be an Excel document, it could be anything. And pretty much we had to add things into the Sitecore Item Web API to make our import work.
Okay, so it's a data import.
Yeah, so we've successfully used it for data importer.
We've had clients that haven't really enjoyed the desktop or editor experience in Sitecore. Maybe it's like a user who uses Sitecore once every 3 months, and maybe there's a lot of those users, and they don't want to spend the time training them, or feel like they can't train them, for whatever reason. So creating really friendly task-based interfaces, so you can only do these 4 things when you're creating content. I think I can see that being like a really good use case for this. So you have all the control over the UI. They can only do these few things, and that's the rail they're on. I can see that being a nice use for what.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
Thank you.
And also, pretty much it's just, if you need to pull in content from Sitecore from outside of Sitecore, well, you have the option of using this, right there. It's native. So.
On that point, how do you find the performance of this? Because what I can see really using this for is if you have a really complicated front end like Angular based web app where basically you want to use Sitecore as like a content repository, but you don't necessarily want to be adding presentation settings to every single item that every user is going to be going into, and you want the front end to really manage grabbing that data. But with that, I can see like the performance of possibly having to grab a whole bunch of items at once, or
with the presentation, you put that on the template, and then it would just get inherited on the item, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. But I mean, yeah, I can see what you're saying though. If you had to make a ton of changes, yeah. I mean, I don't have any numbers, but I mean, our performance on our import is pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, we've had many major issues with performance. I think when you start pulling down thousands of items, which we did, then you start to see some lag. But if you're talking about hundreds of items, I don't think there'll be any issue.
I can add a little bit to this. We found out that the item API, when you're at least just getting items, it does cache it on the server side. So that is a little bit of a boost for performance. And Jamie showed that you can actually, if you only wanted a certain amount of fields, you can also just limit the fields you're showing. And for my implementation, because I wanted to get that whole Sitecore tree, I implemented lazy loading for the parent and the children. So it only actually loaded one column. So there's a bunch of different ways, but for the limited scope that I did, and I think the scope that Jamie did, we didn't see a problem with performance.
Is there any limitations on what type of items you can pull in? And you've talked about content items, but does this item API extend to templates, workflow, systems, like something in the system folder.
I don't see any limitation.